You ever see a celebrity who is just on top of the world? I mean, they can do no wrong. Millions of fans hang on their every word. And then, almost out of nowhere, it all comes crashing down. That whole career, built over years and years, can just crack. And nowhere is that more true, more intense, than in the world of K-pop. So how does that even happen? How does a beloved idol, someone everyone sees as this golden child, suddenly become public enemy number one? What is the trigger that causes such a massive, dramatic shift? Is it really just one mistake? Or is it something that's been bubbling under the surface for a long, long time? And you'd be surprised. Sometimes the thing that lights the fuse is, well, a hamburger, an endorsement deal, a surprise relationship, a single shaky performance on stage. These seemingly tiny things can ignite an absolute firestorm of backlash. The triggers might look random, but the patterns behind them, they're actually pretty consistent. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to look at what happens when idols get caught walking a political tightrope. Then, we'll explore the moment that perfect public image shatters. From there, we'll dive into how private lives become public spectacles, and how sometimes idols are just pawns in a bigger corporate game. And finally, we'll talk about the fandom's role in all of this. So let's jump right in with our first point, fame on a razor's edge. And honestly, there's no better case study for how fast things can turn than NCT's Mark Lee. This is an idol whose reputation was, for the better part of a decade, pretty much bulletproof. I mean, fans and even non-fans routinely called him the industry's golden boy. He was hardworking, he was humble, and completely scandal-free. He built this incredible image of sincerity, and people really felt like they had a genuine connection with him. He was trusted. And then a single brand deal was announced, and that entire reputation, built over years, it changed, almost overnight. And this leads us to our first major theme. In our super-connected, globalized world, idols are finding themselves walking this incredibly dangerous political tightrope, a lot of times without even knowing it. A simple brand deal can suddenly become a symbol for a huge, complex global conflict. Okay, so to really get this, we need a little context. The whole thing started when a McDonald's franchise in Israel gave free meals to IDF soldiers. For activists around the world pushing for pro-Palestine boycotts, this instantly made the Golden Arches a massive target. Now, you might think, what does McDonald's Korea have to do with that? Well, it pays royalties to the global corporation, and for so many fans, that financial link was more than enough. Supporting the brand in their eyes became totally immoral and tone-deaf. The reaction to Mark's campaign was just immediate and brutal. We're talking tens of thousands of Instagram followers gone in the first 48 hours. His social media was just flooded. And this wasn't just a few angry people, this was a symbolic protest. It was fans sending a really clear message that a line had been crossed. The anger wasn't just about the deal itself, it was this feeling that an idol with such a huge global platform has to be more aware of what their partnerships actually mean. And things got so much worse when fans started to feel like the company, SM Entertainment, was trying to sweep the whole thing under the rug. During a live stream, another member, Renjen, mentioned the McDonald's ad, and he was just immediately shut down really awkwardly by staff off camera. For fans, that moment confirmed their worst fears. The company knew about the backlash and was choosing silence over taking any responsibility. This quote right here from a fan just perfectly sums up the rage. The company was happy to get paid, but refused to be held accountable. And you know, Mark's situation, it wasn't a one-off thing. Soloist John Somi, who was known for being super online and always on top of trends, got hit with a similar backlash. All she did was post a TikTok with a Starbucks cup, another brand that was being targeted by boycotters. In both cases, the feeling from fans was deep disappointment. They were basically saying, in today's world, for stars with this much influence, I didn't know just isn't a good enough excuse anymore. So that's one factor, this political tightrope, but sometimes the backlash is way more personal. Let's move on to what happens when that perfect public image cracks and it reveals something, well, a lot less perfect underneath. This is often tied to accusations of gapchill, which is a Korean term for someone abusing their power over others. For years, Red Velvet's Irene was seen as the it girl of her generation. A top-tier visual, massive brand deals, the whole package. Then, in October 2020, a very respected stylist posted this long, detailed story about being verbally torn apart by an idol for 20 straight minutes. She didn't name names, but she used hashtags that pointed right at Irene's group. The industry just froze. And then, a little while later, Irene herself posted a public apology admitting it was her. The fallout was just immediate. brands dropped her, events were canceled, and she basically vanished for almost a year. That pristine it girl image was completely shattered.
But a crack in perception doesn't always come from bad behavior. Sometimes it's about a perceived lack of skill or professionalism. Just look at the group SSERAFIM. They were skyrocketing, one of the top groups of their generation. Then they performed at Coachella. Their live vocals got heavily criticized, and what started as some fair feedback quickly spiraled into one of the most intense hate trains we've seen in a long time. They were being called a national embarrassment. The perception of them as these polished, perfect performers was damaged, and it just opened the floodgates for nonstop criticism.
Okay, so we've seen how personal conduct and professional skills are put under a microscope, but the scrutiny, it doesn't stop there. Our next section gets into what happens when an idol's private life, something that should be their own, becomes the cause for massive public judgment, turning someone who was once a feminist icon into a total pariah. HyunA literally built her career on being bold, on being unapologetic, and empowering women. A lot of her international fans saw her as a feminist icon, so you can imagine the shock and disappointment when she announced she was dating young Junyoung. Why? Well, he had admitted to being involved in the horrible Burning Sun scandal, specifically watching illegal videos of women that were filmed without their consent. But what made it so much worse was that his ex-girlfriend, the late Guhara, had been one of the brave women who helped reporters expose that very scandal. For so many people, HyunA dating him felt like a deep personal betrayal of female solidarity and of Guhara's memory. Her biggest fan pages shut down overnight. Even her close friends in the industry publicly unfollowed her. So beyond personal choices and public image, there's this other massive force at play: corporate warfare. Sometimes idols don't have a fall from grace because of anything they did, but because they become these unwilling pawns in a much bigger, nastier game between huge entertainment companies. The whole situation with NewJeans is the perfect example. For months, they had the public's full support in their fight against their parent company, HYBE. But that support just vanished after one crucial court ruling. The court sided with the company, saying that the group's feeling of a breakdown of trust wasn't a good enough legal reason to break their contract. Now, in South Korea, there's a really strong cultural belief in honoring legal agreements. So, public opinion shifted like instantly. Netizens started slamming the group for acting on emotions instead of law, with one person famously asking, who goes to court to terminate a contract based on vibes? And in this corporate war, there was serious collateral damage. As part of her public feud with HYBE, the CEO of NewJeans label publicly accused a brand new rookie group, ILLIT, of being a copycat. That accusation, coming from such a powerful person, was absolutely devastating. Before ILLIT even had a chance to show who they were slapped with this plagiarism label and became the target of a vicious hate campaign, all because of a corporate fight that had absolutely nothing to do with them.
Now, this feeling that a company is mishandling an idol can also cause a backlash, but it's aimed at the company, not the idol. Fans of the group KATSEYE have become more and more convinced that one of their members, Minon, is being intentionally pushed aside. They've become detectives, pointing to her being portrayed as lazy in their debut documentary, her always being in the back during dances, and being suspiciously absent from key promotions, like a solo photo that just went missing from a beauty brand collab. It's gotten to the point where fans have organized boycotts demanding that the company treat her fairly.
So whether it's politics, a cracked image, a private relationship, or a corporate battle, we've seen all these different ways an idol can have a spectacular fall from grace. And that brings us to our final section, where we really have to ask a tough question about what these backlashes even are. As we've seen, right, the roads that lead to this public judgment are really varied. It can be a brand deal that steps on a political landmine, a moment of bad judgment that shatters that perfect illusion, a private choice that the public decides is immoral, or just getting caught in the corporate crossfire. But they all lead to the exact same place, a trial in the court of public opinion. And this is the real dilemma, isn't it? When fans demand more from their idols, whether it's more awareness, better behavior, or just fair treatment from their company, is that a necessary form of accountability? Or does the sheer speed and ferocity of social media mean that any valid criticism will inevitably turn into a destructive, out-of-control hate train, where the punishment is just way, way worse than the original crime? One thing is for sure. In this new landscape, reputations are built on glass. And as fans get more and more power to throw stones, that line between demanding accountability and just destroying a career gets dangerously thin. For today's celebrities, the court of public opinion is always in session, and it offers absolutely no chance for an appeal.